Yes. Okay, well, we're recording now, Rabbi, and let me just go ahead and get things off to the races for our viewers. You are presently on the 70 Nations Broadcast Network, and of course, our goal is to make it the network that unites. We'll have shows from all over the world eventually. Right now, we've got Philippines. We're working on some folks over in Europe. So hopefully we'll be able to add to the number that we have now from the United States and Israel and the Philippines. But for now, we've got what we've got, and they're all great hosts and they're all great shows, and I think you'll really, really like them. And my show is the Hammer of Truth, which you can see there. And we're going to go ahead and get the ball rolling with another host, which is Rabbi Yosef Feld. And I've known Rabbi Feld for a number of years. And in fact, he taught some classes in our Academy of Shem. And they were called The Soul Powered Life. And he did 2 separate shows on this. And I didn't miss a minute. And in fact, they were so good, I listened to them again. And I actually received some phone calls from people who went on and watched them later after they were recorded and up in the archives that said it really helped them, particularly with PTSD. It was remarkable. I know that you and I had talked about that, but it really had affected them and gave them tools that they could use to make their lives better in their circumstances on a daily basis better, and being able to deal with this particular issue, because certainly there's no shortage of it with the men and women in our military when they retire. They change. War changes people. I don't even care if you're in a war. The prospects of having to go to war, I mean, that's tough. It's really tough. So I think Rabbi Feld's got some excellent answers here and some great solutions for making our lives better. And the show that he will be doing for us is going to be the sacred work of love. And this is going to be a very tantalizing show. I mean, I can't wait to watch it myself, because it has a lot to do with love, obviously, but marriage, relationships, all kinds of different things that we encounter on a regular basis. So let me go ahead and introduce Rabbi Yosef Feld as the host of the Sacred Works of Love. Shalom, Rabbi. How you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for having me today. And thank you for your warm words. It was really nice to hear that even after the class that I gave, people were being influenced by it and helped by it, and I appreciate that.
Right.
You said that we had discussed PTSD, and you referenced the military. I would say that when it comes to relationships, there's so much trauma at play. There's so many negative experiences, insecurities, and these insecurities and experiences become a negative filter. And a lot of times, something that's said to us by a partner, by a spouse, may have been said innocently, but we are hearing it based on different things that happen. Just like to the veteran, hearing the car, misfire, is they're hearing tanks go off. So
right.
I think it's a great parallel, and the other component is that trying to understand and be sensitive to the traumas that your spouse or partner may have. So if we're looking at it through, like you said, a lens of that I have wounds, They have wounds. I have hurts. They have hurts. I've had negative experiences in childhood, and what else they've had. So it could be when I say something to my spouse and then they, kind of escalate and get upset and get angry, if I understand that there's pain over there's something there, it may have nothing to do with me, it's easier for me not to take it personally, and it's easier for me to try to speak in a way that doesn't trigger them.
And I can't agree with you more, except I have to believe that, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, but most people, that's probably one of the more difficult things to recognize that's going on in their life, because unfortunately, as human beings, it tends to be a little bit more about, me. It's all about me kind of mentality that we're working with. And I know that what you're saying is exactly true, because if we cannot see or identify with the other person's dilemma, we really can't even have a conversation, because it just won't make sense. I'll be speaking for me, they'll be speaking for them, and there's just a void in the center. So I think what you're talking about is very, very true. And I wanted to mention, you do this professionally. I mean, you work at hospitals, clinics. I mean, you work with patients on a regular basis. Can you share a little bit about that? What you're doing?
Sure. Well, my regular my regular job that I work at a healthcare center, I do two things. I do individual counseling. So I work with adults, anywhere from 18 to 88. um, and that's always special to watch the human being throughout the life cycle, and I see, I work with men, I work with women, I work with people that are coming from all diverse backgrounds, and I always get inspired because I see the same. I enjoy seeing the human being trying to work on themselves, trying to become a better person, trying to cope, trying to navigate challenges. And I see the 18-year-old, just starting out in some ways into adulthood, and they're navigating a whole host of challenges. And I see the 80-year-old navigating a whole host of different challenges, whether it's grief or whatnot. But everyone's trying to be strong. And I feel I get a lot of inspiration from the people that I work with. And then I also work in the crisis unit or the emergency department, where let's say you're not seeing people at their best. And over there, I would say that's where the work for me is, to be able to evoke that compassion and know that this is a human being that's hurting. They're not at their best. No judgment. Who knows, what their story is exactly. There always is one. And believing that that human being, that spirit, that resilient spirit, could at one point help them and get them through whatever it is that they're going through. And I'm just here to be as supportive as I can and provide them with whatever resources I could in the process.
Well, that's great. I mean, I may be wrong, but I have to believe that you've been quite the busy individual the last number of years, given everything that has been going on in the United States. I mean, there is so much drama and trauma that you must see, a lot of people with a lot of different things that they're trying to deal with that aren't typical. I mean, things that have been going on really haven't been typical in our country. And now it's almost like, well, used to be an everyday occurrence. Now, not so much. Things have kind of mellowed out a little bit. But I would have to believe you probably encounter a lot of, dare I say, hysteria when you get into those emergency situations.
Oh, people are definitely stressed out. There's an element of stress that I haven't seen. If you go back before COVID, I guess you could say, people are anxious. People are worried about the global situation. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world now. There's no question about it. And people tell me, and it's interesting because the people that I work with, a lot of them have a lot of their own problems, their own personal problems. But that being said, they are aware that there is a lot of tension in the country, geopolitically, and people are worried.
Right. Well, and a lot of that gets conveyed uh, through the family, because that's generally who you're going to associate with most outside of your workplace. And that stress, well, they always say never talk politics or religion on Thanksgiving, or, back in the day, Christmas, and, any kind of holidays. You never talk religion and politics. And now they don't have to. And it's still one of the most stressful situations because of all these new things that are going on in our country, or that have gone on. It makes it difficult to have a happy, solid relationship with a family member, because they may not believe the way you believe. So, and I'm sure with what you do, you probably help these folks not only recognize that, but kind of give them tools to work with to be able to deal with it.
Well, definitely. I a lot. I'm working in a secular setting, so there are limits to what I'm allowed to say to them. But as far
Right.
as what I would love to do is help them find comfort and solace through their faith. But a lot of times I have to just work on helping them accept what's in their control, what's not in their control, and how they can make a difference. Um, and I'm just talking about in general stress, but and all stress ends up spilling into relationships. And yeah, of course, I see those people that, let's say, have different political views from the people that they're close to, and there's a lot of turmoil there. But it's just, I was speaking just more generally about the state of the world that we live in. Um, as far as relationships specifically, this has been a deepening interest of mine over the last, I would say, 3 or so years. I've always worked with couples. I've been doing clinical social work now for the last, I would say, 15 years. But so I've always worked with couples throughout. But as I was as I was developing this approach to inner healing, I found that it could be extremely valuable in relationship settings, because it's so hard to be present in a relationship, and it's really difficult to, like as you said, to reach above ourselves if we're not secure within ourselves. And this, to me, was just such a natural area for faith, and ultimately for connecting with that self-compassionate voice within ourselves that could heal our wounds and give us the ability to have space for the other person.
Well, and Rabbi, I may be wrong, but it seems to me that you have a beautiful character for this exactly. In other words, I believe that you have found your calling, because I listened to you for hours and hours and hours. And I mean, I can't tell you, I can't express how good it made me feel, in terms of, well, I can use that. I can use that in my daily life right now when I get up from this computer. And it was just so helpful that, people don't realize it, because more often than not they feel they can handle these things themselves. And and in reality, they can't, because they become their own worst enemy at that point. And I think you have this way about you that you very easily can peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and get to the root of the problems, and provide tangible answers that people can use in their day-to-day life. Now, I know that's what was happening with me in the soul-powered series that you did, which was, if you folks ever get a chance, they're up on the Noahide Nations website right now, and they'll be, transferred over to our network, broadcast network site. But you've got to check these out, because even just listening to the recording and watching the rabbi work, you really get a feel for how you can help yourself. And I think from what I've seen, you actually enjoy this. You love this, don't you?
I very much do, and I'm really touched by your words, and thank you so much. I think you've also are doing your calling as well, if I may say. And there's a lot of different pieces to this, in terms of a calling, but I would say that above and beyond relationships, I believe that part of, if we want to use the word calling, I mean, we can never be 100% sure, we're not prophets, but I believe intuitively, I feel a tremendous sense of purpose, mission, I could even say, around, working with our non-Jewish brothers and sisters, and our holy non-Jewish brothers and sisters, and in such a difficult time are able not just to be not turned away, but even to turn close. I don't know if we find this in history, honestly. In history, we find, and I mean going back to the very beginning of Jewish history, to Egypt, we find that that the non-Jewish brothers and sisters came close when the Jews were doing well. Whether on our way out, they walked out the door. When we left Egypt, they left with us. When we were being slaves and despised, they weren't taking the blows with us, And then around the time of Purim, it says that again, there were non-Jewish people. Mordecai was the prime minister, right? He was the second to the king. He was the rising star the Jewish people were looked up to. So yeah, they were gathering around. But now we're finding a phenomenon where I don't know if there's a more hated group in the world right now than the Jewish people. And just look at the stats. The hate crimes. Just in general, the way more than the amount of any of all other hate crimes put together. And then you look at our proportion, the numbers compared to the numbers of people out there. So to see in a time like this, people like you that have that hammer of truth, we just passed Hanukkah, and that's what it's about. It's Yehuda HaMaccabee, right? Maccabee means hammer. You need to have a hammer of truth to really keep on doing what your heart tells you is right, especially in such difficult times. But I feel that this is, I feel that, this perhaps could be another conversation, another podcast, but I really feel that this is how this is how history is. This is how Mashiach is going to arrive, through the collaboration between the Jewish people and our non-Jewish brothers and sisters that recognize the value of what we have been living.
Oh, I can't agree with you more. The thing that I've noticed is it's that recognition that both sides are really lacking in the other side. We don't understand as non-Jews what it's like to be a Jew, even though we see what's happening and we see what's going on to the Jewish people, but we can't really put it in our heart because we've never experienced it. We've never been persecuted in that type of way. So it's very difficult for us to see that. And by the same token, for the Jewish people, they've never been a non-Jew, so they don't know how it is to be us. So there's that lack of recognition, that the only way we can get even close to that recognition is by having discussions just like this. And sooner or later, and hopefully sooner with Hashem's help, we'll be able to get there and be able to work closer together in a significant form of unity, as opposed to kind of what goes on now. We've got non-Jews pushing Jews away. We've got Jews pushing non-Jews away. That's not helping. It doesn't get us to our ultimate goal, which is the anointing of the Mashiach, and may come in our time. But now we've got this new show. Tell us a little bit about your sacred work of love and what this involves. It seems a little more generic from the standpoint of love. I mean, we talked about the soul, but that was addressing some really hardcore problems. I want to reach inside ourselves and recognize that our soul is real. Our soul is part of us. In fact, it's the majority of us, if we decide to finally let it out, is our soul. Now here we have love, which is more of a reflection of, I believe anyway, of the emotion, people's feelings. They can sense when they're loved. You can feel love for others. So tell us about what this show and some of the topics we may encounter with you on this.
Sure. So the sacred work of love, I would say, is it's most designed for a couple. In other words, it's true that the principles can be applied to anyone, because we are human beings that are social beings. We're in relationships. We have, a lot of us will have uncles, cousins, children, grandchildren, parents. but that being said, in some ways, the most challenging relationship from a spiritual perspective can be that long-term relationship between a man and woman. And right at the beginning of the Torah, Hashem says, he spells it out right there, right? Zachor Nikeva Baro Osam. Hashem created them male and female. And it says, Lo Tov Hayosa Adam Levado. It's not good for the man to be alone. Esa Lo Ezer Kenegdo. I'm going to create an Ezer Kenegdo, a helpmate. And V'hayu Lebasar Echad. You're going to have to work on, despite whatever emotional, psychological, familial, demographic differences, they're going to have to work to blend and to become and to work together. And out of that union comes communities, and it comes families, comes communities. And that's a big piece of the world being healed, is human beings that grow up surrounded by secure love, by models of secure love, by models of selflessness. So it's most ideally designed for people that are couples, and anyone who wants to improve their relationship, without a doubt, will be helped by it. But it especially will be helpful for couples that are struggling in one way or the other in the marriage. And I would say, in terms of the ultimate focus, is for the more motivated spouse. The spouse that says, you know what, our relationship is not what it should be. Or the way my spouse acts, I love my spouse. I want to have a good relationship, but the way he or she acts either in terms of what they're doing or what they're not doing, is really distressing, is causing me a lot of pain. It's triggering, it's bringing up a lot of things in me, and I can't deal with it. I need some tools. And that's really what I would say, that's the person that will get the most out of this. And what they'll get out of it is those two domains. Domain one will be that similar to that what we discussed in the last podcast. They'll get tools to understand their triggers and to use that compassionate voice of their soul, the self-compassionate voice of the soul, to heal those triggers, to keep them centered, to keep them calm, to relax the fight or flight response, even if something hurtful is being said to them, even if something that they asked a few times is not being done, seems to be being willfully ignored. That's the first domain, or the first stage, is to be able to ground yourself, center yourself using a spiritual approach. And the next step is to be able to communicate in a way that heals, in a way that changes the trajectory of an interaction. So if your spouse or your partner, yes, it will work with, a friend, a coworker as well, definitely. But in its most delicately and most nuanced form is done in a couple where one spouse is, let's say, upset, they're angry, they're feeling unloved, they're feeling alone, they're feeling abandoned in some way, usually wrongfully so, and they're coming at you from that place. And for you to be able, as I like saying, turn pain into closeness. For you, after you're centered, after you're grounded, to be able to respond in a way that helps them calm and helps them understand that you're not against them, you're with them, you're here to hold them emotionally, and that relaxes them. And then the interaction turns from what would have been a fight into a collaborative and relationship bonding experience.
Well, and I'm sure that this is not an easy task. I mean, of course, you always hear the phrases like, you only hurt the ones you love. And that's because we love so deeply that people get more hurt when their spouse says something or doesn't say something. It just affects you more deeply than if somebody else were to say it. So I have to agree, and yeah, I believe it would help with co-workers and friends and things like that, just to calm things down. And what a tremendous asset if you were able to learn how to do that on a consistent basis, to the extent that it becomes part of your being and not just what you are, it's who you are. And it just makes life that much easier, because irregardless of what the circumstances, you're able to respond to it in a, dare I say, godly way, because Hashem loves us, and sometimes that love is expressed in a harsh way, not always something that we would agree with or want for ourselves, and yet it's the only way that you can be awakened. And to me, that's true love. I mean, he's not afraid to give me one of these every now and again to let me know that, hey, I'm in charge. Let me show you a thing or two here. So I think what you're saying is absolutely positive and wonderful, and that a lot of people are going to be able to get a lot out of this. Now, I was kind of curious while you were talking, would you do something like this outside of the clinic or the hospital if people just didn't feel comfortable? I mean, could they like come into a conference room like this and have a worthwhile discussion with you to the extent that they're actually getting something out of it in terms of help?
Oh, definitely. I would say precisely not in the clinic, because in the clinic, like I said, I'm limited. It, I'm limited. Yes, it's true that if the person wants a spiritual approach, I could give them a spiritual approach, but I have to be much more secular because it's a clinic and they're trying to
Right,
service a lot of different people. So yes,
right.
I think that this is a wonderful space for that because these are people that believe in that have a spiritual core to them, and they have a sense of mission about who they are and what they're doing, and this is here to help them, to hold their hand, so to speak, and just show them that there's a way to calm another person down if you're starting from a centered and grounded place yourself. Then there is a way to clear up misunderstanding. There is a way to show a person that may be traumatized that you're not a threat. And there's a way to take a person's words and not be threatened by them or internalize things that they say because they're in pain.
Well, and I'll just throw this out to the viewers that if you encounter this kind of situation where you feel the need to meet with Rabbi Feld outside of a clinical setting, hospital setting, uh, if you feel the need, all you really need to do is contact Rabbi Feld. He has outlets at his end that he can do this with, or I've already told him that he can use this room to provide whatever people need. Whatever the help is, it doesn't matter. This is his area. It's his conference room. It's his expertise. And I would encourage you, if for no other reason, to help yourself to learn how to help others. And I'm looking forward to the show. I hope you folks are too. And Rabbi, you looking forward to this?
I'm spot on. I'm ready. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm really
I,
excited.
I thought you might be. So let's go ahead and call it a show from there. And I really want to thank you for taking the time. And I know how busy you are. And I just appreciate you so much for coming on board with us today and sharing with me and the audience what this is going to be all about. And I would encourage people to visit the site, the Noahide Nations, 70 Nations Broadcast Network specifically, and tune in to our Rabbi Feld show, listen to some of his previous recordings, and if he can help, please allow him to do that. It's my belief that Hashem chose him to do this kind of work, and fortunately for those of us in need, he provides that. So, Rabbi, thank you so much. And folks, you can start listening to his recordings right away for the ones that have been archived. But the new show will be coming up beginning of January. So please do keep an eye out for it. And if you have any questions, just fire an email to me at ray@noahidenations.com, and we'll get everything answered for you as best we can. Sound good to you too,
Ray,
Rabbi?
I'm really grateful to you for giving me this opportunity.
Well, I think everybody will be when it's all said and done, and it'll be great to stand before the heavenly court and be able to say something like, we really did try our best, and hopefully we'll reach the point where we have earned the right to have Mashiach anointed, rather than have it thrust upon us in a way that we may not want it to be put upon us. So one way or the other, it's going to happen. Let's hope for a peaceful transition. So Rabbi,
Amen.
thanks so much again. Have a great time doing your show. If there's anything I can do for you, give me a holler, and we'll get things rolling next month for you.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Rabbi. And folks, again, You're on the 70 Nations Broadcast Network, and the show is The Hammer of Truth. So we hope you'll tune in for more of these excellent discussions with our hosts and others. So thanks so much. Shalom. Have a great week.